Hey guys, time for another preview of another U.S. history unit in our curriculum. This time we're looking at the Roaring Twenties. This is one of my favorite units to teach in U.S. history. It really brings about pop culture for the first time in your U.S. history curriculum. So you can see this is a great unit. It starts off with day 1 on the Roaring Twenties and continues on through day 7 where kids are going to take their test. These are based off of block schedule classes, so if you teach daily classes, this could be about like 13 lessons or so, almost 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks or so. Looking at each one, we're going to start off with the Roaring Twenties. So there's a PowerPoint that's going to take students through it. There's guided notes. There's a flipped classroom video, Google Slides option, great guided notes that kids use to follow along on all the key points of the Roaring Twenties, because there's a lot going on. It's not just flappers and jazz music. You have the Red Scare that's going to take place during there. There's a backlash against immigration. It's going to take place there. You're going to have the Harlem Renaissance and so on. So we're going to spend some time looking at each one of those as we go through the unit. So day 2, we have a great stations lesson on the Harlem Renaissance, where kids are moving around the room. They're looking at art at one station. They're looking at literature and poetry of Langston Hughes at another station. They're listening to music at another station. And they're learning all the different aspects of the Harlem Renaissance. It's a wonderful lesson that really kind of engages students to get to really engage in culture, which is not always the aspect of a curriculum in U.S. history. The next day, they're looking at the Red Scare. They're going to be analyzing some sources on the Palmer raids and the Red Scare and learning about this kind of backlash against, the first major fear of communism and anarchists in the United States and how that came about and the impact that it had on their primary source and a song on Sacco and Vanzetti and some other things. Prohibition was a major aspect of this era. So we're going to look at Prohibition, some of the lead-ups to it, what led to the enactment of Prohibition, and then the backlash that ended up taking it away. So there's a great stations lesson as well, where kids are working together in small groups or pairs to analyze some cartoons and some primary sources of the era related to Prohibition. Day 5 is a look at the terrible Tulsa massacre of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when there was fire bombs from the air and then this terrible massacre of black residents and African Americans in Tulsa, in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, where an entire community was destroyed there in 1921. To really close out the unit, then you have your review, where we're going to be covering making sure students understand all the things that were covered in the unit. There's a great unit guide packet that you can use there. There's some review games. There's some review activities that work well with students there. And then you have your test is to close out the unit. There's a couple tests that you can use. You can have one for the first time around, then another for retakes. You can have one for absent students. You can use the printed version. You can use the Google Forms version. Both are there for you. And then there's distance learning materials there as well. If you're teaching virtually or online and you just want all the virtual stuff in one spot, it's there for you. But all these lessons have Google Docs, Google Slides, they have videos, there's interactive stuff, there's everything that you need to teach about the Roaring Twenties, all there for you in one spot. There's lesson plans for each day. There's engaging resources for you and your students to use each day. So they're engaged, they're loving U.S. history. They are working independently and together in groups throughout the whole period. It's great stuff for you, and I think you'll really enjoy it. If you have any questions about this unit on the Roaring Twenties or any other unit or about U.S. history, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks, everybody.